I never believed in curses. Not really. Mold, rot, bad wiring, those were things you could fix. But this, what happened in that house, wasn't rot. It wasn't decay. It was him. My name is Anna. I'm 34. I've never told this story out loud. I don't think I can, not without losing my grip on what's real. So I'll write, even if it means remembering everything. It started 2 weeks after my father died. I came back to the house I grew up in, an old 2-story place on the edge of a dying town, half eaten by rust and ivy. He'd lived there alone for the last 8 years. He'd never moved a single piece of furniture. It felt like a mausoleum. Dust, silence, that strange sour smell of a place untouched by joy. I told myself I just needed time to clean it out, to sell it. But after the second night, I started to notice the wall in the upstairs hallway. It was darker than the others, just slightly. The paint bubbled in one corner, a soft, uneven blister the size of a coin. I assumed it was water damage. I didn't touch it. The next day, it had spread. Now it was a jagged black patch, the size of a plate, not wet, not sticky, just wrong. It looked more like burn marks than mould, but there'd been no fire, and it wasn't warm, it was cold. I told myself not to panic. I scrubbed it with bleach. It didn't come off. The sponge came away stained black. The smell was awful, not mildew, more like rusted metal soaked in vinegar and blood. I opened a window. The air outside was still, too still. That night, I heard the noise for the first time. I was brushing my teeth when it started, a low grinding sound, like a steel pipe being dragged through concrete. I froze. It echoed up from the vents, and then it stopped. Silence. I turned off the light, walked into the hall, and saw that the stain was now running along the baseboards, like veins, splitting, stretching, branching like a creeping infection. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, the mirror in the upstairs bathroom was fogged over, but I hadn't taken a shower, and the window was open. I wiped the surface with my sleeve, and for a split second I saw a room that wasn't mine. It looked like my bathroom, but decayed, like it had been abandoned for decades, walls crumbling, ceiling dripping. Something moved in the background, a slow, shifting shadow. I blinked. It was gone. I told myself it was trauma, stress. My father had just died. I was alone in a strange house filled with ghosts of memory. But then, that night, I heard the grinding again. Only this time it came from the wall behind my headboard. And then something scraped from inside the wall. A long, dragging movement, like a body being pulled slowly through broken glass. I ran to the hall. The stain had reached the door to my bedroom. It was pulsing, gently, almost like it was breathing. I locked the door. I turned on every light. I sat in the corner with a hammer in my hand and a blanket over my shoulders, shaking like a child. At 3:12 a.m., the lights flickered. Just once. A quick surge. Then they came back. But when they did, there was a shadow on the wall across from me. Not mine, not moving, and not cast by anything in the room. I didn't look directly at it. I just closed my eyes. I remember thinking, if I don't acknowledge it, maybe it'll leave. But deep down, I knew the truth. It had already found me, and it wasn't going to leave. Not until I screamed. The next morning, I found rust on the kitchen sink, but not just on the drain everywhere. The faucet, the knobs, the edges of the basin all blooming with thick orange corrosion like it had been left out in the rain for years. It hadn't looked that way the night before. I was sure of it. I touched it. My fingers came away stained red-brown. The water ran dark for 5 seconds before clearing. I turned off the tap. I stood there and listened, and somewhere deep in the house I heard the faint screech of metal twisting. I walked the hallway again. The stain on the upstairs wall had doubled in size. Not only that, it had started to climb. Thin black veins reached upward toward the ceiling, splitting off like cracks in bone. I noticed something else too. The light bulb near the stain now gave off a low hum, like it was trying to stay on. And then the smell hit me sharp, metallic, wet. I gagged. It was the smell of open wounds left in the sun. Later that day, I stood at the top of the stairs and felt the air shift. The hallway behind me stretched, just slightly. A trick of the eye, maybe, but the shadows were longer, the corners deeper. The floorboards felt softer underfoot. I turned, and for a split second, I saw a shape standing in my bedroom. Still, dark, and then gone. I blinked, and it was empty, but my bedsheets were ripped open, as if something had crawled out from beneath them. I tried to leave. I packed a bag, phone, wallet, keys, jacket. No hesitation. But when I opened the front door, I stepped out into the hallway. The same hallway. I turned around. Behind me was the front door again. I tried the back door. Same result. Every exit now led back into the house. I checked the windows, nailed shut. No, melted shut. The glass had warped, like it had been exposed to intense heat, or something older than fire. And the light outside? It wasn't sunlight. It was the colour of old paper soaked in tea, yellowed, flickering, unreal. Like the sky was pretending, I began to hear whispers, not words exactly, breath. Breath with intent. Sometimes they came from under the bed, other times from the walls, but always, always from behind me. And then I made a mistake. I opened the attic. The door groaned, trembling, like it didn't want to be touched. The air above was thick and cold, despite the summer heat. I climbed slowly, flashlight in hand. The moment my head rose above the floorboards, I saw something I will never forget. My father's wheelchair, rusted and overturned, even though it was buried with him. Next to it, a series of long scratches in the wood, as if something had dragged its fingers along the floor toward the far wall. I followed them, and that's when I saw the rot. It wasn't on the wall. It was the wall, black, pulsating, almost wet like a skin stretched too tight across something massive and breathing underneath. And in the centre, just barely rising and falling, was the outline of a face. Not formed, not human, just the idea of a face, pressed from the inside. Its mouth moved. I didn't hear it. I felt it inside my spine. You stayed too long. My flashlight went out. I don't remember climbing back down, but when I came to, I was lying in the kitchen. The rust had spread across the fridge, the oven, the light fixtures. Every appliance groaned with age that didn't belong to them. Even the air felt heavier, tasting of dust, rot, and grief. That night, I didn't try to sleep. I just sat on the floor and watched the hallway, watched the stain grow, watched it reach toward me, and I realized something else. It wasn't the house that was breaking. It was time. There was no longer a morning, only after. I woke up, though I don't remember sleeping, and the floor was soft. Not carpeted, not wood, soft, like walking on old meat. I stared at my feet and realized the hardwood had turned to sickly grey-green veins running through it like it was alive. When I stepped, the boards gave slightly under my weight and then rose back up with a wet sigh. The air was dense, warm in the wrong way, like something had just exhaled. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, or what used to be the hallway. Now it curved strangely, stretching left where no room had ever existed. The mirror still hung crooked on the wall, but it showed me nothing. Not emptiness, not darkness, just rot, peeling walls, rusted fixtures, and a shape moving in the distance, dragging something. It wasn't me, but it had my height, my frame. My flashlight flickered. I turned it off. Somehow, that felt safer. Every room in the house now led somewhere else. I opened the pantry and found a stairwell I'd never seen. Went down, found myself in the upstairs bathroom, but older, warped. The walls melted into each other, as if the angles had forgotten how to behave. I stepped forward and the door behind me vanished. No knob, no frame, no exit. I was inside something that no longer obeyed rules. That's when I saw the others. The first was a man, or what was left of one, hunched in the corner of a room covered in broken clocks. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stared ahead, lips twitching, like he was trying to remember language. There was a woman in another room, but her face was missing. Not torn off, not bloody, just smooth, blank, like her identity had been scraped away. She whispered without sound. Her mouth never moved, but I heard her voice inside my skull. He takes you when you rot, but it's your fear he wears. Then she looked straight at me, even without eyes, and vanished. I wandered for hours, or minutes, or days. Time didn't exist anymore. Watches stopped. Digital clocks displayed symbols I couldn't read. I scratched a tally into the wall every time I thought a day had passed. I lost count after 12, or maybe 30. And the walls kept changing. Sometimes they wept. Sometimes they pulsed. Once they spoke a low, moaning sound, like breath echoing through lungs filled with ash. And then I saw him. The old man. He didn't appear from a doorway. He didn't walk. He emerged from the wall like it was water, his form pulling forward, inch by inch, without urgency. He was tall, thin, wearing a suit that had rotted off him long ago. No eyes, no mouth, but somehow I knew he was smiling. The wall he stepped from sealed behind him like he'd never come from anywhere at all. The grinding sound returned, but now it was inside my head, tearing, bending, screeching. I fell to the floor. He crouched beside me slowly, patiently, and I felt everything. My thoughts unraveled. Memories leaked from my eyes as tears. I saw myself at 5 years old, clutching a stuffed bear. At 12, hiding in a school bathroom stall. At 22, whispering, "I love you," to a man who never said it back. And then those memories melted. I could no longer hold them, like pages burning in my hands. The old man never touched me. He didn't need to. His presence dissolved me. And just before I lost everything, I whispered, "Please." And he leaned forward, his rotting breath seeping into my skin. "You're not afraid enough yet." And then he was gone. The room collapsed into black. And I screamed, but there was no sound. I don't know how long I was gone. Not asleep, not unconscious, just missing. From myself, from time, from everything. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me was cracked and throbbing, yes, throbbing like it was alive and barely holding itself together. The wallpaper had peeled into strips, hanging like skin. They moved without wind. I tried to sit up and realized I'd been lying on something soft. Not a mattress, not carpet. It was books, my journals. Pages from my childhood diary, college notebooks, receipts, photos all stitched together into a nest. And every word written had been crossed out, erased. As if the house or he was trying to delete me. I stood up, my hands were older, not just tired-aged, the skin looser, pale, cracked at the knuckles. One fingernail had turned black. I touched my face and flinched. My cheeks felt unfamiliar. My lips dry as paper. There were no mirrors, but I no longer needed one to know. I was becoming something else. I walked through what remained of the hallway. The doors had warped into strange shapes, long, thin slits that led to rooms I didn't recognize. One opened to a childhood birthday party, only all the guests were frozen. Not statues, not mannequins. Me, copies of me at different ages, all staring blankly at the cake. Their mouths slowly opened as I stepped closer and then screamed in unison. But the sound came from behind me. I ran. The house no longer obeyed architecture. Staircases looped into themselves. Closets opened to stairwells. A cupboard held a hallway. A bathroom became a field filled with rusting beds, each holding a faceless body under a white sheet. When I pulled the sheet from one, I saw myself lying there, asleep. Mouth slightly open, I whispered, "Wake up." But she didn't, or wouldn't. My memories fractured further. I tried to count fingers, days, syllables. Nothing held. I forgot how to say home. I forgot the word safe. I forgot the sound of my own name. When I tried to hum a song I knew from childhood, it came out backwards. Each note sharp, shrill, wrong. Time wasn't just broken, it was infected. And through it all, he watched. Not standing, not walking. Just there, whenever I was weakest. Sometimes I saw him in the floor, stretching upward like a shadow, refusing to leave. Other times, his fingers curled out of cracked tile like roots reaching for me. I learned not to scream. He liked that. The silence, that's where he fed. On fear with no voice. I scratched marks on the walls, the floors, my arms, anything to remember. I was real. But the marks would vanish. Shift places, move up the walls. One day, they were written in someone else's handwriting. It said, "Calmness is the only way out. Don't run backward. He's made of time. If you run with it, he finds you. Run sideways." I didn't know what it meant, but I clung to it like gospel. Then came the mirror room. I didn't walk into it. It grew around me. Walls rose up from the floor, each one a perfect mirror. But none of them showed me. Each reflected a different version of myself. One was crying. One was older, much older. with white hair and black eyes. One bled from the mouth, silently screaming, and one was smiling. Calm, still, smiling. She stepped forward in her mirror, and I felt her enter my skin. The air shifted, the rot trembled, and suddenly I understood. I couldn't go back, couldn't escape, but I could go sideways, not out, not up, just other. So I ran. Not through a door, not through a wall. I ran through the idea of escape. And I broke something when I did. The world folded like wet paper. The house howled every board and beam and bone of it. And the old man reached out one last time, his fingers brushing my spine. He whispered, "You will carry me." And then, light. I woke up in a ditch. Dirt in my mouth. Sunlight, real sunlight above me. Wind on my skin, alive. I coughed, rolled onto my side, and stared at the road. Empty, cracked, the kind of road no one drives unless they're lost. I sat up. My limbs shook like they didn't remember how to move. I looked at my hands dry, wrinkled, fingertips split. There were deep lines on my face when I touched it. My hair was brittle, streaked with white. The last time I'd seen a mirror, I was 34. Now, I could have passed for 50. An old man in a passing truck found me. He said I looked like I'd crawled out of a grave. He tried to call an ambulance, but my name stuck in my throat. I couldn't remember it. Not right away. I whispered something else instead. He's still inside. He drove me to a hospital. They scanned my brain. Found nothing wrong. Said I was dehydrated, malnourished, but otherwise healthy. Healthy, as if time hadn't turned me inside out and put me back together wrong. I was missing for 9 days. That's what they told me. 9 days. But I remember months, years even. Too much to fit inside that space. Memories came back in fragments. The old man's face, or the absence of it. His breath inside my thoughts. The sound of rust forming behind my eyes. The room of mirrors. The woman who wore my smile. The copies of me frozen in time. It all sits in me now, unquiet. I tried to sleep. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the grinding, like he's trying to come back through the cracks, back through me. Because when I escaped, if that's even what it was, something followed, or stayed, or was never separate to begin with. I don't talk much, can't hold eye contact. Mirrors in my house are covered. The lights stay on. I sleep with sound, static, rain, voices, because I know what happens when it's silent. He listens in silence. There's something else too. I find black stains. Not always. Sometimes on the wall behind my bed. Sometimes on the inside of cabinet doors. Once on my skin, a perfect oval on my thigh, like a thumbprint made of tar. I scrub them. They come back, and every time they do, I hear him again. You brought me with you. You opened the way. I've moved 3 times. It doesn't help. He's not tied to the house. He's tied to me. I found a number once scribbled in a dream, of all places. Woke up with it on my palm, 233. I called it, the voice on the other end asked me, Anomaly number? I whispered, 106. There was silence. Then, is it active? I hesitated. Then I said the truth. I don't know. They told me not to return to where it began. I already knew that. They said I should be monitored. But no one came. And now I don't know if I even made the call or just imagined it. So now I write like they said. Because someone has to know, someone has to be warned. If you ever see black stains forming on your walls, leave. Don't pack, don't speak. Just go. If you hear metal twisting from inside, concrete runs sideways, not back. If your walls start to breathe, it's already too late. And if you think you escaped him, check your shadow. Watch your dreams. He doesn't need your body. He only needs your fear. And I gave him too much. Now I carry him. He's quiet most days, but he's listening, waiting. And someday when I'm alone again, when the house is still and the air goes cold, he'll come back through me. Because I'm no longer just Anna. I am the exit wound. I am what came back.